What would it feel like to walk into your next midterm or final and feel like, you know what? I'm actually ready for this. In this video, I am sharing a 7 days out study strategy where I am laying out day by day what to do and some ways to do it so that you get to that exam day feeling more ready and less stressed than you ever have before. So first, we're 7 days out. The exam's a week away, and we are starting our organization process. First, you need to figure out what kind of exam this is. Is it multiple choice? Is it essay? Is it a mix? Because these different types of exams mean different types of studying. More on this in this video right up here. Once you know what type of exam you're preparing for, it's time to figure out what this exam actually covers. So what chapters, what readings, what lectures, what discussions, what assignments or exercises or labs are going to be tested on this exam. Now, obviously, if there is a study guide provided by your professor, this is where you start using it. Now, a tip here, don't just list everything out. Really take some time to note what your professor really emphasized. So what did they spend the most time on in class? What did they organize assignments or exercises around that it really seemed like they wanted you to learn and take away? Because those are the things that are also most likely to show up on the exam and that you probably want to dedicate a bit more time on in your study process. Next, it's time to gather and organize all of those materials. Notes, readings, lecture slides, anything you've got, you pull it all together and you organize it usually by topic. So you're grouping all of the different pieces that talk about the same sort of thing together so that when you're studying that topic, you have everything right there ready to go. Now, another thing to note on this first day is whether you are missing any key pieces. So as you've gathered and organized your materials, is there anything missing? Did you miss any classes or are there gaps in your notes? Now, the amount of time spent on the exercises for this day in the study plan can vary a lot. Some students can do all this in 30 minutes. Others need a couple of hours. It really depends on the exam and the extent of the materials and really how organized you've been up to this point. But completing these foundational tasks makes the next days in the study plan so much easier. So definitely don't ignore or skip this first day. Now, it might feel like at the end of this day, you haven't spent much time actually studying, but actually these organizational foundational tasks are the first active study strategy you are using. So now we are 6 days pre-exam. Yesterday, you identified those gaps, things that were missing from your materials that you need to fill. Today, you are filling those. Maybe this means getting together with a classmate and getting any notes that you missed. Maybe this means going to professor's office hours and asking them questions to make sure you've got everything together that you need. After this day, you should feel like you have really complete materials. If you don't have any gaps to fill, this day is a great day to have an initial group or partner study session where you compare study priorities. You see if you all identified the same things that the professor seems to emphasize so that you all know what you are focusing the most study time on. So the second task for this day is to split up all of that material that you identified was being covered by the exam into manageable chunks. Think 30 to 45 minutes. And these are what I call study sprints. So you will list these sprints out in a study checklist for yourself. And ideally you should have 6 to 10 here. If you have a lot more than that, then you may either need to plan on spending more time and working through more study sprints each day in the coming study days that we'll get into in a moment, or you may need to allow yourself more days of studying, meaning you're starting the study process 8 or 9 days out instead of 7 days out. Now, the purpose of having a study sprint checklist is that it eliminates that momentum barrier where you're sitting down saying, okay, I need to study, and then you have no idea where to begin, right? By having a checklist, you know exactly where you left off and where you need to start now so that you can get right into it and be really efficient with your time and with your effort. Another bonus of a checklist, of course, is that you can see the progress you're making as you go. And this can go a long way because often studying can feel like it never ends and like you're not getting anywhere. So a checklist just psychologically can give us a little momentum boost. So the next few days in the study plan will look very similar to one another, but you'll be covering different study sprints. So 5, 4, and 3 days out, you are taking a segment of those study sprints and starting to work through them, to check them off. But real quick, has this video been helpful for you so far? If so, I would love it if you would hit that like button. That just lets this video reach more students like you who are looking for some strategies to up-level their exam grades. Thank you so much for doing that. All right, so each day in this phase of the study process, you are working through 2 to 4 study sprints, 2 to 4 items on that study checklist. And then the goal is that you do a study sprint, you take a break. You do another one, you take a break. Or you could even space these out across your day. You do one after breakfast, and then you go about your day. You do one after lunch, you go about your day. You do one mid-afternoon, you go about your day. And so you can space these as it makes sense for you and your schedule. Just make sure you are spacing them, not trying to crunch them all together with no break. Now, the exact study methods you use during these sprints can vary, but the main thing here is first to make sure that you are really focused. You're not letting yourself get distracted by other things. And second, that you are actively studying, not passively. And what this mainly means is that you are effortfully processing the material in a way that you are testing your knowledge. Maybe this is saying, all right, I'm going to read about this theory, and then I'm going to see if I can explain this theory in my own words to my mom, right? Or maybe you have a classmate you're working with and you are testing each other on different key concepts or theories or ideas and seeing if you can explain them in your own words, if you know what they are. And if you don't, that's when you go back and you keep practicing, you keep studying. And one cool thing about this test yourself approach is that when you get it wrong, it's actually more likely that you will remember it and recall it on the exam than when you get it right, because the extra effort you have to put in and the extra tag you put on that piece of information that says, oh, I actually don't know that yet. I have to go back and review that. It's more likely that it's in there even deeper after that extra study practice. If at any point during a study sprint, you find yourself just flipping through your notes or reading passively through the textbook, stop. That is just going to waste your time. Passive studying like that is not how learning happens. So if you are feeling fatigued and you're noticing that you're not actually thinking about or working on committing things to memory or learning concepts, connecting things together in an effortful way, take a break. Give yourself a chance to regroup to a point where your brain is ready to put in that study effort again. One other thing to keep in mind during each of these study sprint days is to take a few minutes, we're talking 5 to 10 minutes, and quickly refresh the things that you've already study sprinted. Now, naturally, this means that you will refresh or review those topics you study earlier in the study sprint checklist more times. So if you know that there is a certain topic that you'll find more difficult or you're more confused about, make sure to put those at the beginning of the checklist so that you have more times where you're refreshing and reviewing it during this study process. Now we are 2 days out from the exam. You've worked through the entire study sprint checklist, but it's been pretty fragmented. You've worked on one thing at a time. Now it's time to bring it all together. You should feel pretty confident with all of those different pieces. Now you're looking at it all together, and ideally you're working with someone else at this point to really get together and test yourselves and see, okay, if I put myself in exam practice mode, I pretend I'm sitting down right now to the exam. Am I ready? Can I explain this? One other 2 days out task, if it's needed, if there were any gaps or questions that came up during your study sprints that you now need to go clarify something or ask the professor, do it now, clear those things up so that you are really ready to go. So we're 1 day out. The exam is tomorrow. The day before the exam is not where you are intensely trying to commit things to memory. You've already done that, right? This is the only time when passive study strategies can be helpful because you've already done the deep learning work. So now you can do the textbook flip through or the notes flip through. This makes you realize all of the learning that has happened between the time when you gathered all of that material at the beginning, and it probably felt really overwhelming. And now you're looking at all that material now and you're saying, I actually learned it all. This is awesome. This is where you are building your own confidence. You are telling yourself, I'm ready. I've got this. You're getting your mindset to the point where you can walk into that exam, that stress, that anxiety won't block those memory pathways. You'll be able to access everything you need because you know you are ready for this. Overall, this strategy usually takes an average of 1 to 2 hours a day for that week leading up to the exam. And again, this is for a major exam, think a midterm or a final. And what it does is it prevents burnout and boosts learning by spacing your practice, your testing yourself sessions out and putting memory consolidating sleep in between. Each night in between these days, you are sleeping and your brain is consolidating what you have learned so that it's easier to pull out later. And research shows us that this type of strategy is so much more effective at learning and boosting exam grades than cramming the night before. Now, if you want to know what to do on exam day itself, I have put together a video that talks about exactly that right up here. It includes an entire exam day checklist. So go check that out next, and I will see y'all next time. Happy studying.